For good reason, Thoreau's resistance to civil government, now usually called civil disobedience, has become the Bible of modern resistance movements. It is, in a real and definable sense, the ideological origin of resistance as we understand it today. But it has a history of its own, something that I unpack in one of the chapters of my book. It's born not only of Thoreau's moment, but of America's founding moment. Not the patriotic fantasy version, not the Ken Burns version, not the 1776 Commission version, the real one. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins, and the author of the forthcoming book, A Resistance History of the United States, coming to you next year, knock on wood, from Steerforth Press and Penguin Random House. Now, Thoreau wasn't writing in a vacuum. He was writing in direct confrontation with the world that the American Revolution had produced, both its rhetorical promises and its practical failures, its utter failures. And that was all pulled from Enlightenment ideals, really, but also from their collapse and how they were gutted and twisted in the hands of self-interested men who used the authority of government and those new ideas about the nature of government all for their personal gain, all while draping themselves in the language of universal liberty and shared interest. But by the early 1800s, as romantic nationalism took a stranglehold on all that, taking those Enlightenment ideals, originally conceived as universal, not attached to any particular people, it warped them into these brutal, ethnocentric ways. You could see it in France. You could see it in the Germany that produced the first of America's most powerful myth makers, people like George Bancroft. And you can see it in the United States, where it gave cover to slavery, rapacious expansion, and exclusion. It produced the gag rule. It produced the annexation of Texas, it produced the murder of Elijah Lovejoy, and it produced the ongoing daily oppression of 3 million people by 1846, 1 in every 7 Americans. And Thoreau saw all that. And he understood it in a way that only someone paying attention to the 60 years of the First Republic in operation could. He knew that the government created by the founders hadn't failed to live up to its ideals. Those ideals weren't in fact there. It had never been designed to realize them in the first place. Now that wasn't necessarily, in a sense, their fault. They did what it is they said they were going to do. It was the fault of everyone who then and since had thought they were doing something else. The First Republic was working exactly as they had intended it to protect the rights of a few, to hoard power in the hands of men like themselves, and to barricade their system behind mythology and ritual and some really nice words. Thoreau understood that the deep roots of American chattel slavery in the First Republic was not some conceptual conflict. It was not some ridiculous original sin. It was intentional. It was foundational. That no matter what language the founders used about liberty, they had written a constitution that entrenched a regime of abusive authority, and it was destroying lives every day. And the founders had meant for it to do just that. That's what made resistance necessary. And Thoreau laid the grounds for what that meant and what it means. Nonviolence? You don't know Thoreau. Because Thoreau also saw what made American resistance especially difficult then and now. He saw the hurdles, our national mythologies, the stories that protect institutions from any real scrutiny and protect the comfortable from consequences. All of our history is wrapped in nationalism on the left or nationalism on the right. This belief that injustice could be tolerated as long as progress was promised, that harm in the present could be justified by imagined justice in the future. We'll get there someday. Just go ahead and participate in the struggle for now. Thoreau had enough of that. And he had enough of the appeals to reason, to regular order, to incremental reform, enough of the moral posturing, enough of the hollow speeches of petitions and rationalizations, because they weren't just useless. Thoreau pointed out how they were enabling harm, destructions to lives that just can't be put back together. He understood that performative opposition is not harmless. It's complicity. It sees harm, it recognizes injustice, and it still allows it to continue, to keep harming. Because people with power are more comfortable putting change on the calendar than confronting it in the present. And he laid out the failure of a political strategy based on compromise and deflection and messaging. His disgust with voting and petitions was a direct response to a political system where both choices, both major parties, were part of maintaining the status quo on the nation's most fundamental injustice. Thoreau lays all that out. And the idea that we should wait for justice to prevail, that liberty, that change, that structural change will come eventually, will come peacefully and quietly after another session, another compromise, another election, against people whose entire interest it is to maintain the status quo, preventing change. Because even among the performative opposition, that change might come for them too, and they ain't having it. To Thoreau, that was cowardice. Thoreau wrote Resistance to Civil Governments first as a speech, as a call to action, to name all that for what it is and to refuse it. He stopped paying taxes. He went to jail, not because it was performative, but because it was honest. It was a refusal to feed a system that fed on others. He saw the cost of compliance. He saw the rot in the foundation, and he said no. John Brown heard all that and acted. Alice Paul heard that and acted. Martin Luther King heard that and acted, each of them citing Thoreau. And for those of you who have been asking, that's where modern American resistance begins. You want to know what he was doing at Walden Pond when he was thinking about living deliberately? He was thinking about resistance, and there's nothing more deliberate than that. So get your copy now. It's the beginning of your resistance reading list, the start of a playbook for us all. Henry David Thoreau, Resistance to Civil Government.